Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. I am your host, Corey C., the former Icon Census ambassador and team member of P-Rep Team Icon Vet. I'm here with a very special guest today by the name of Joe Blackburn. He is the founder of Crypto Coin Trader, a cryptocurrency Facebook group that's been around for time memorial. It's been around for what, Joe, 3 years now?
Yeah, April will be officially our third birthday as far as an open group.
That's incredible. With over
Yep.
115K members, I have to say, man, it really, as someone who's been involved with Crypto Coin Trader, who's been involved with the group for 2 years, I have to say it is the most wholesome cryptocurrency Facebook group I've ever been in. There's so many different
Thank
people
you.
in there that have so much different expertise and so much different levels of knowledge in different areas of the blockchain and cryptocurrency space. It is the number one place, in my personal opinion, on Facebook to see cryptocurrency information. So thank you so much for creating and help building this ecosystem of trust, transparency, and education, especially in an ecosystem right now that craves education, that craves infrastructure, that craves community. Because if we don't have a community, we don't have adoption. We just don't. We don't. So
Absolutely.
as someone who has been empirically observant over the last 2.5 years, especially within that group, I want to thank you personally. Thank you so much, Joe, for creating that group. It's very important that we have community.
Well said, man. And I appreciate the compliments. Obviously, it's not just me. There's many people, too many to mention, but that helped create that. And I've been very fortunate, right time, right place, in a lot of manners. But also, to learn from mistakes and those that came before me, and in the overall mantra, what is Bitcoin? What is cryptocurrency supposed to be? And it's an unanswerable question because it's a decentralized, and relative conversation when you have that with somebody. So it's been a journey, as you know, and I know you've experienced as well. But I wouldn't change anything right now, and it's been something that it's called me, and I am so grateful just to be part of it. Just like I know you feel the same way.
Absolutely. It is the embodiment of the free market. It is the embodiment of transparency. It is the embodiment of a society that allows for different individuals to send money without the need of an intermediary, without the need of a centralized bank. It
Sure.
gives authority back and a monetary standpoint back to the people, because the simple fact that I could send Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency to someone, I don't know, in Rome or South Africa or China without the need of a middleman. And I think that's incredible. And I think a lot of people don't realize how many people in this world are actually unbanked and don't have the financial services that we take for granted in the first world. And I think that's unfortunate. There's over I think it was the statistic I read was over 2 billion people, which is roughly 30% of the population, remain unbanked. And cryptocurrency can solve that problem as the infrastructure and the market itself matures. I think that's a
Completely
very
agree.
crucial component of cryptocurrency, is that as it matures, the projects that survive and thrive and build infrastructure will bring about a new paradigm of economic incentive and economic mobility and economic transparency. And I think that's an incredible initiative of cryptocurrency. I really do.
No, I agree with you, Corey. And some of the things that inspire me so much to be part of this space and this community, just in general, are a lot of the key factors you just mentioned. And right now, you off camera right before we started, you had mentioned a quote, and just about how there somebody at some point is going to have to create some internet money for the last age of the internet to really take hold.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's not the exact quote. You can give it to me in a minute, but the concept of a um, the ability to transact without permission, that to me is that's a God-given human right that should not be suppressed or even relegated to the ideas of politicians. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against government. I'm for, a responsible and well-structured government, one that
Same.
represents the entities. And, I always say this: if you're an anarchist, I really can't even have a conversation with you because, I'm talking about true anarchy because, you might be a great person, but, we have too many examples of people not being good people to not have a standard to set by it. Now, I don't want to get too off topic here.
Of
The
course.
point I'm trying to make here is essentially this: is that in crypto and blockchain and Bitcoin and the entire cryptoverse, we've been very privileged to have a really successful project called Bitcoin be the example, the standard. And, through that standard, it's been, obvious to us, that there's lots of potential on the side of the blockchain, and the blockchain is the next version of the internet, to some degree, based off of the needs of humanity. Humans are now transacting, and they're doing a lot of business over the internet. They're traveling more. The world is a lot more open, and it's a lot more, I would even say, interconnected, both online, digitally, and physically. People are back and forth. People are working in different countries. It's only a point of human evolution that this even exists. Like, it was just
Mhm.
bound to happen in some form, and I think the blockchain was one way or the next inevitable.
I couldn't agree more. And I think a focal component that a lot of people need to realize is that the whole purpose of cryptocurrency, one of the focal components of why it was created, was because of the Great Recession. And the idea that a centralized authority was the culprit of the financial crash of 2008, and Bitcoin was created at the same
Yep.
exact time.
Yep.
And I
This
think
exact
that
same time frame.
exactly. And I think it is a God-given right that everybody is allowed to transact money without the need of an authority figure to give them permission. I
Sure.
don't think I don't think that's equitable. And as you said before, I am the farthest thing from an anarchist.
Mm.
By any means, I think government is necessary. As James Madison put it, men are not angels, so government is necessary. Um,
Well
but I
said,
do.
James. Matt, he just ended it right there. Boom.
But I couldn't agree more that cryptocurrency is the herald of a new economic paradigm of digital democracy. And we see this now with these different cryptocurrency projects that are actually mirroring um, governments such as the United States, specifically the project that I'm a big supporter of, which is ICON. The entire governance model of ICON is based on public representatives that operate that operate nodes and run the network. And the way that they're able to suffice, and they're able to build apps, and they're able to build infrastructure, and they're able to operate nodes and pay for server costs, is through the iconists, which are another word for the icon community, delegating their coins and voting for these specific teams to run nodes. And I think that's incredible because we have now digital democracies being created within the cryptocurrency space, which is setting a precedent of a paradigm shift of a governance model that is democratic on a global frontier that utilizes the internet. And I think that's incredible because as we go into now the new decade, and we are now going forward into the 21st century, when we first started the 21st century, a lot of people didn't realize how much the internet was going to have such a massive effect on the world. And now we see that economics is now taking a hold within the internet. And as you said before, you were referencing Friedman, and he said that pretty much the internet's going to come in three waves, and the third wave is going to be reliable e-cash. And about 20 years later, Bitcoin is born, and now there's 4,000 different cryptocurrencies. I'm not saying all 4,000 cryptocurrencies are the hallmark of what cryptocurrency should be, but there are
Sure.
many projects out there that are building infrastructure, that are creating different innovations and initiatives that allow for this democratic paradigm to prosper. And that's exactly how I got into Icon. I realized that the governance model of Icon was very similar to the United States government, where you had public representatives, which you could think of them as senators, and you have something called the I Constitution, and you have the I Congress, which is pretty much the I Congress is going to be formed amongst the different P reps to talk about governance and to speak about how the network itself is going to run and operate. And I'm deeply appreciative of that as an American, realizing how specifically Icon has the potential to revolutionize
I love that.
the democratic paradigm and also interoperability, which is entirely absent within the cryptocurrency space right now. We need interoperability. We really do.
Agreed. I like to reference back to the point where everybody, cars. I mean, cars are everywhere. They're all over the world. But it's only been over like what, the last 100 years or so.
Hmm.
Henry Ford's making the Model
Yep.
T, and making it popular. I mean, he had several prototypes before that, but more importantly than the cars, car is useless without roads.
Yes.
And the roads themselves, when you compare, the idea of starting a business, and to have a successful Model T making industry, you got to have a reason to use them, right?
Yes.
And right now, where we are, and and I think Icon's a good example of this, is there's not a lot of roads right now for the Model Ts to be driving down the street yet. There's not a lot of
Absolutely.
reasons to have a car yet, in this respect. And I see people who are so short-sighted, and it's not surprising. Otherwise, everybody would have been investing into Henry Ford's, company, and Ford, would have made a lot of people, and it did make a lot of people rich. But
Mhm.
it was probably hard to convince a lot of people with money, to say, hey, look, everybody's going to be using this one day. I mean, could Henry Ford even envision what today is? No, of course not. I mean, he was blinded by his own ceilings and his own ideas and thoughts. And you're not really buying into a car company. You're not buying into being the government, making sure the roads are obtained. You're building the companies that are building the roads right now, and that's the most important thing. And that's an analogy I think a lot of people can relate to. You can't have a successful car company, if there's no roads. And you can't have
Absolutely.
roads without a reason to use them. Well, people have been walking for a long time, so having a pathway or road is always going to be relevant. And people are going to continue to use the internet. But these cars are a brand new piece of technology. Cars being that these crypto opportunities that exist, and the companies that are building these crypto and blockchain opportunities are the people building the roads right now for the overall betterment of the world. I mean, it's coming, and it can be a little bit hard to follow, but hopefully that made a little bit of sense.
No, that made perfect sense. That was a great analogy. We need roads in order for cars to operate. And
And anybody who thinks that it's not going to happen at this point, you're not even paying attention. Like, you're living in for tomorrow. That's it.
it's true. I couldn't agree more. And I appreciate that you said Icon is a perfect example, because what we're trying to do, I forgot exactly who said it, but he said that Icon is trying to create a paradigm where different blockchains can talk to one another. Interoperability is so important in this space because it's nearly absent. And what Icon is planning to do specifically this year with its blockchain transmission protocol is to be able to commercialize it, one, and two, to be able to connect these different public and private blockchains so that they can interconnect and communicate with one another.
It's
That
it's a
is,
huge deal. And when that
that,
happens, when
yeah,
somebody does that, it's going to be. I mean, obviously, Icon's trying to make this happen at the moment. When you can connect them, it's a game changer.
absolutely. And when you have government legitimacy, what we talked about before, how we're both not anarchists, and the, I think the paradigm shift from 2017 to now is that 2017 everybody was a anarchist, and now we realize that in 2020 that cryptocurrency can benefit through decentralization while also benefiting off of the assets that come with centralization. It's not a paradox. They can work together. They can, well, actually it is a paradox, but they can coexist together, and they
Sure.
can work together. And Icon's a fundamental example of that, because we have different initiatives like the My ID Alliance, where we have the Seoul Metropolitan Government backing Icon Loop in this digital identity service initiative. And I think that's incredible that a project is now garnering oversight and garnering different excuse me, different people who have been part of the government to actually say, wow, this is a new company, this is a new project relatively. It's 3 years old, but the cryptocurrency market in itself is relatively young. But to garner that governmental legitimacy is gigantic for a cryptocurrency project, especially when you have Samsung Security, Samsung Insurance, Kyobo, and 39 other different excuse me, 39 different companies that are working together with Icon Loop to perpetuate this My ID digital identity service. And I think that's gigantic. And not to mention the fact that we have 73 different public representatives, which are, in other words, is teams that operate within the Icon ecosystem that span across 5 continents. You have the foundation with about 130 employees, and then you have 73 different public representative teams that span about another 150 to 200 people across 5 continents that are bringing
Yeah,
Icon
it's
to a
impressive.
global frontier.
Yep. And, obviously, Corey, and I'm impartial when it comes to the success of blockchain. Obviously, I have enough faith that Icon's doing something great. I wouldn't be on your show, but I'm really rooting for everybody.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important that we don't lose sight of this. Or I go back to the ICO, like the boom ICO boom.
Hmm.
There's a lot of companies that are still around for them. There's a lot of companies that are no longer, even have a working Telegram, let alone, someone there trying to build something. But
Yep.
regardless, it is a free market. There is somebody doing something right, and there is somebody right in this minute somewhere doing something wrong. Probably many people doing something right, many people doing something wrong. And it's up to you, the individual, the user. And we get lazy. I'm the same way. I'm no exception to this. I want somebody to who's credible and who's got some, some clout behind their name, and someone who's done a lot, to build themselves up. I love hearing, people like that give me a heads up and be like, yeah, Joe, go look into this. But I don't trust anybody, and anybody in the space who does believe everything that somebody says. You're looking to get hurt. And in 2017 was a great example of it
Absolutely.
culminating to that. And we were very fortunate to watch Bitcoin go on a nice run. We had a bunch of drama with Roger Ver, Bitcoin Cash in 2017, and then it just propelled all this crazy influx of media attention and brought in a ton of money. And it was really good looking back that we were able to experience some of the downfalls. But we're still, this moment, we're 700,000 or 700% higher at Bitcoin price than we were at the beginning of 2017.
Yep.
That's not failure, folks, right? I mean, you're looking at Ethereum, the same thing. Ethereum was $6, $7, $8, going into January 2017. 3 years later, it's still 10 times, 20 times the price. In between there, I'm terrible at math. I don't even know what Ethereum's price is right this minute. But I do know this, that all these projects that people like to say and base, the success or failure of blockchain and crypto off of as the standards, and I think Ethereum and Bitcoin are great examples. Those things are up so high. It's just relative to when you bought in, folks. And if you go back 9 million%, I think, or maybe 9 billion%, whatever it is, Bitcoin's up a lot compared to when it first started. And a lot of crypto projects who are suffering right now, who are down, it's so short-sighted to think that these companies and these coins cannot, have another day, and they will. I don't think that it's a matter of will it happen or not. It's which ones are going to have done enough to have investor confidence pick back up and put some value into these things. I mean, let's be real. A lot of these companies, they probably shouldn't have been raising money selling tokens. They probably should have done it a different route and then provided the tokens and then watched them go up, based off of usability. But it was just too easy. It was too easy. And I don't blame people for jumping on this wagon. Just because a project went down to zero doesn't mean it was a scam. It could have been a failed business. It happens every day in San Francisco, right? Go to Silicon Valley and tell me how many business models have failed or businesses have failed and weren't scams. A lot of them. There's a lot of really great companies that tried to make it and there just wasn't the need, or it's too early, or whatever it might be. They weren't scams though, folks, and you got to get your perspectives in order so that when you're explaining these things to people or when you're having a conversation, you can be responsible. And I look at Icon when I say this, but it could be a few different other projects too. When you have a governance model that makes sense, that is perpetuating the opportunities, and bringing to light the glaring holes that exist that are going to make a lot of these issues that we face today. A lot of these things are probably too big for me and you and everybody else to really even have to understand. We don't have to understand this, folks. It's just knowing that someone does need this to happen for you to enjoy this more, right? And it's like saying, could you understand what building a road is today, even, let alone, unless you're a construction worker, someone who's laying asphalt and painting lines, you probably have no idea. Not saying it's hard to understand. It's just not necessary. Like somebody else is handling it. But we need these people to fix these roads so that we're able to continue to travel and do business and have the opportunities to go see our family, et cetera. I mean, without it, the luxuries that we have today in travel and doing business just don't exist. And it's the same thing with these crypto projects trying to build something so enormous, so big, so grand. It takes time, takes patience, and it takes working through the problems. I mean, we're doing this for the first time as a community. Whether it's Icon, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's ETH, everybody's figuring this stuff out essentially as they go. We just know it's going to exist long term. So, I mean, obviously, I can get carried on. I don't want to rant too much on your show, Corey. I apologize.
No, don't apologize, please, man. The conversation is completely wholesome, and I appreciate all the input, man. I really do. And I think it's crucial that people realize that this is an asset class that has the potential to change the world.
It is changing the world.
It is. It absolutely is. It had, like I said before, it can bank the unbanked. It is the herald of digital democracy amalgamated with transparent capitalism. And I think that's such an important type of governance and economic paradigm that exists because we've seen it operate pretty effectively in the real world. Democratic paradigms with a mixture of capitalism. And I think that cryptocurrency and blockchain technology has the potential to revolutionize that space. And we look at now, like 2017, you bring up the ICO craze. 2017, there wasn't much government backing with different projects. For example, Now, I'm going to use Tezos as a perfect example. Tezos is now being used, to my knowledge, by the French army, by the French military. And that's huge. That's gigantic. It
Mhm.
shows legitimacy. It shows, okay, these coins, these projects, they have a legitimate function in the exterior world, not just the digital world. They have a function. And that's gigantic. That's huge because now going into the new decade, we have what I've noticed in 2019 was that you saw the beginning of the projects that took this space very seriously start developing infrastructure. And the reason why I bring up Icon is because our infrastructure has been being built since 2017. But in 2019, we had decentralization now. Decentralization is so important because now we have a governance paradigm with different teams that are able to operate an entire ecosystem through being elected by the community. And that amalgamation
Wow,
of
where have we
community,
heard that idea before,
yeah,
man?
yeah. The amalgamation of community with the corporate level per se is so important because I feel like one of the important aspects that a lot of people don't realize in cryptocurrency is isolationism. I feel like a lot of projects isolate their community, and I feel that that's an important mending process that we need to perpetuate. We need
Sure.
community. We need a government cannot operate without its people. So with that being said, I'm very excited to see what 2020 and the decade of 2020 has in store for the cryptocurrency and
Absolutely.
blockchain space.
I think it'll be the best year yet.
I really do. I think so too, because we're starting to see with multitudes of projects expanding their infrastructure and expanding their legitimacy. It's no longer, and thank God, it's not like 2017 where the videos and all the information was about what price is gonna
Sure.
go up, what price is gonna go up. Well, what's this? What's that? It's now no.
Yeah. Nobody
What
even wants to see a price video right now.
exactly? What now? It's what cryptocurrency projects are actually going to utilize and create mass
Sure.
adoption, and
And,
that's so important.
yeah, and I like to remind everybody too. There's nothing. I got into the space because I thought that I was going to make money, right? Like that was my and like
Of
essentially
course,
my
yeah.
initial interest into Bitcoin, and that was back in the end of 2013 when Bitcoin had run up to just around $1,000, and I was a young freshly married dude with $1,000 in his savings account. That was all I had, and I bought a Bitcoin, and then within a couple months, I was down to $240 or whatever it fell down to.
Hmm.
Needless to say, I didn't tell, my wife, that's what happened to them. I mean, I still had the one Bitcoin, and I was fortunate enough to recognize that after looking into it more and starting believing in what Bitcoin was going to be, I'd buy $5, $10, $25 every day, that I could, whether it be at the end of the week when I got a paycheck or whatever it might have been. And before you knew it, I'd stacked up, close
Hmm.
to 4 Bitcoin. And
That's
this was back
great.
even still before Bitcoin was even, I think it got maybe back to 500, $600, but I was just about even, man. I bought enough when it was low and added on and stacked up that my $1,000 buy was no longer at a loss. I was up. And, instead of selling it and, taking, my 4 Bitcoin that I had probably had a total of $1,800 as a whole completely invested in, I just continued to stack sats, right? I just kept buying. And then Coinbase opened up and allowed me to start
Hmm.
buying there. And it was great. But that same concept, that same reality, that watching Bitcoin go all the way up from, $25 to $1,000, and everybody missing out. That same cycle has happened 3 times now, right?
Yep.
3 major times. And, we're coming up on the halving this year. It's going to bring a lot of extra, media attention. It's going to continue to, probably hover around this price, at least momentarily. And it's going to continue to pull people out. They're just going to be like, I'm done. I think it's going to go down. And I don't understand that line of thinking. You're in it for the short term. The people that are in it for the short term, the quicker they get out, the better. I mean,
I
that they're
agree.
just going to sell when it goes up 5%, 10%, and that's fine. If you want to do that, I mean, I have no, I mean, I have an opinion, but I have no reason to stop you. I mean, it's your right to do what you want. But to kind of narrow down what I'm trying to say is that we're in a position this year where there's so many great things happening. There's so many companies that are excelling, and there's government credibility, as you noted with Tezos and several others. And among those types of things, you're also going to see more people find Bitcoin more appealing. I think that we're going to really start, seeing. I mean, just like Bitcoin, was easy for Americans to buy for a long time, and it's maybe recently gotten a little bit more difficult.
Hmm.
It's starting to become easier, and there's other countries that are just now in a position where they have access, or they're just now getting the word that this actually exists. And I mean, look, Bitcoin's always going to be rare. There's only 21 million that can ever exist,
Yep.
and people are losing it every single day. And it's
Yep.
just adding to the fact, I've heard somebody tell me before, Corey, that the next age of mining, or excuse me, of like of treasure hunting, is going to dumps and finding old computers and trying to
Yep.
recover Bitcoin that has been lost, when Satoshi is worth, $1 potentially. So I'm not suggesting that that's actually going to be the case. That would be incredible, but mass adoption is not Bitcoin going to $1 million. Mass adoption, or Bitcoin going to $1 million, is a literally, it's the result of mass adoption. And
Absolutely.
that day is coming. And you can't convince me otherwise. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe in it. And if it takes 10 years, so be it. Right. I mean, just, I believe in it that much. If it goes down to $1,000, I get a hell of an opportunity to buy some more. And
Absolutely.
I know people say that stuff all the time, like, and it gets old hearing. But if you could buy Bitcoin at $1,000 right now, folks, how excited would you be?
Very.
And that's
Very.
what you were saying about 6,000 and 7,000 when Bitcoin was 12 and 15.
Hmm.
Don't be
I
so
agree.
short-sighted. People really have a problem with rationalizing what they said before and where they feel today. They're emotional.
Hmm. That's the exact issue. I think it's the idea of emotion, and I think for our viewers, the Bitcoin halvening is when for maybe our viewers who don't know what the Bitcoin halvening is. Bitcoin halvening, I believe, is happening in May of this year, and what the
Yep.
Bitcoin halvening is that the miners' rewards are being slashed in half. So in order for the miners themselves to make back what they lost because of the halvening, now this is speculation, but
Of
the
course,
way
it
this
always is.
yeah, this is speculation. I just want to make that clear. But the only way they'd be able to make that money back is if they artificially jacked up the price so that, let's say, for example, let's make a perfect example. One
I don't even
Bitcoin
think
is
it's
just
artificial. I think it's just intrinsic at that point.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a better way to put it. So let's say Bitcoin is $10,000 and the halvening happens, and you only get half a Bitcoin now. So you only get $5,000. You have to make that half a Bitcoin worth $10,000 so that you can make the same amount of money you were making initially. So if that makes any sense to our viewers.
Sure, and it's what the miners right now are mining every day,
Hmm.
and they get Bitcoin every day. There's 12 and a half Bitcoins produced per block,
Yep.
right? And it's roughly 1,800 Bitcoin a day, around about that number. And that number is about to get cut in half, as you noted. It's going to be cut down to like nine, or let's just call it 900, just for simplicity purposes here.
Sure.
If Bitcoin, if it continues to go down, and the difficulty does not match, what the difficulty, meaning how hard it is to mine and how much competition there is, et cetera. If that does not equalize, which it won't at this point, I don't imagine it will, at least. You're still going to have to make your money. Like, it's not going to be worth it for the miners to mine the Bitcoin if if they're getting half of what they got, and it's costing them $7,000 to make a
Hmm.
$7,200 Bitcoin. I mean, if it's
Agreed.
costing them $7,200 or $7,200, and they're only getting 3,500 for the Bitcoin, well, why would they waste their money? They
I
wouldn't.
agree.
Right. So the Bitcoin price, just intrinsically, it changes. Now, not every Bitcoin has ever been mined at that price, so obviously it's relative to the situation. But because at some point that's going to happen, it's just going to get more rare. More people are going to own it. There's not enough Bitcoin for the whole world. It's not enough Bitcoin for everybody in America. There's very few places in the world that you can go and just go and have a Bitcoin for everybody. They just don't exist. And with the rarity, with less and less being, sold into the market to pay for the mining, I mean, 90% of all Bitcoins that are mined are sold
Hmm.
immediately,
Yep.
right? And I used to think it was like 60%. It's higher than that. They got to pay all their bills, folks. So think about that. 90% is being sold. Cut that in half. That's what's being put onto the market. And how much pressure does that relieve? So sorry, I didn't mean to jump on your or take over that conversation, but
No,
it's
I,
it's
I
so it's so relative.
It really is. It really is, and I couldn't agree more in regards to that. I truly appreciate it. Joe, I can't thank you enough for today speaking with you. I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate this wholesome conversation, and I
Sure,
hope
man.
that I
I
can
agree.
come onto your Bitcoin radio talk. I really do. I really appreciate all that you've done. Excuse me, that
Back
all
at
of
you.
you done. And I've been in crypto coin trader since 2017, and I've seen it flourish, and I look forward to seeing it flourish even more, and you flourishing even more as
Thank
we
you.
go into the next decade.
Absolutely, man. And it takes good people like the two of us. I say that without humbleness. I say that because I know who I am and what I stand for, and I believe the same for you, Corey. That we're doing the right things for the right opportunities for people to step in and have good examples, have good leadership, have good opportunities to go in. And I mean, look, the internet's toxic in general, and me and you discussed this before.
Hmm.
It's not easy to walk in the internet as a noob in any capacity, where you're playing a game, whether you're trying to figure out how to use, PayPal. You go ask a question, everybody's like, you're an idiot. Big, chill pill when it comes to jumping on people and not allowing people to be honest in their questions. And the crypto community can be 10 times worse than that, even, right? Like, why would you ever look at XRP? I mean, come on, like, people are buying
Absolutely.
XRP every day. I'll buy it and sell it, as it makes sense. I mean, it
Hmm.
doesn't hurt my feelings. I mean, not everything crypto has to be decentralized for it to make sense to use. The things that do make sense to be decentralized need to be decentralized. But I mean, do you care when you walk into Walmart that it's centralized, or when you go to the gas station that it's no? Nobody gives a shit unless you're indoctrined with this idea that it's all going to be all decentralized one day. That doesn't even make any sense.
Absolutely.
Anyways,
Absolutely.
but cheers to you, brother, and happy New Year, obviously, to you and your community.
Likewise, Joe. God bless. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. Cheers.